Absolutely useless, my father spat, throwing my medical school acceptance letter onto the kitchen table. Another 5 years of school when you could be helping run the family business? What's wrong with you, Sophia? I stood in our family's expansive kitchen, my hands trembling but my voice steady. I want to be a surgeon, Dad. It's all I've ever wanted. A surgeon. My brother Alex snorted from his perch on the granite counter. You can barely handle a paper cut. Besides, the hardware store chain needs someone with actual business sense. Mom sat silently at the table, methodically folding and unfolding her napkin. She hadn't looked at me once during this entire conversation. Anderson Hardware has been in this family for 3 generations, Dad continued, his face reddening. Your grandfather built this from nothing, and now you want to abandon it for some ridiculous dream? I took a deep breath. I'm not abandoning anything. I just want to. To what? Alex interrupted. Waste more of Dad's money? How much did you spend on med school applications anyway? I paid for those myself, I said quietly. Every single one. Dad laughed bitterly. With what money? The trust fund we gave you? The car we bought you? The roof over your head? I lifted my chin. With money I saved working at the hospital. I've been volunteering in the ER for 2 years and they started paying me 6 months ago. Oh, wonderful, Alex clapped sarcastically. My sister, the minimum wage hospital orderly. Really living the dream there, sophomore. That's enough, Mom finally spoke, her voice tight. Sophia, your father's right. This medical school nonsense needs to stop. The family needs you here. I looked at her incredulously. The family needs me to give up my dreams? To work in a business I have no passion for. Passion doesn't pay bills, Dad snapped. The business is struggling. We need all hands on deck, not some selfish child chasing fantasies. I'm not being selfish, I protested. I want to help people, to save lives. Enough. Dad's shout made the windows rattle. I'm done discussing this. Either you commit to the family business or you can get out. No more support, no more trust fund, no more anything. The kitchen fell silent. Alex's smirk grew wider as he watched me struggle with the ultimatum. I've already accepted the admission, I said softly. Classes start next month. Dad's face went purple. Then get out. Richard, Mom started but he cut her off. No, she wants to throw away her inheritance? Fine. Pack your bags, Sophia. You're no longer welcome here. I stood frozen, looking between them, Dad's fury, Mom's averted eyes, Alex's obvious glee. These were the people who were supposed to support me, to believe in me. You have an hour, Dad said coldly. Take what you can carry. The rest goes to charity. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom in a daze. The acceptance letter from Johns Hopkins Medical School was still clutched in my hand, slightly crumpled now from Dad's grip. I'd been so excited to show them, so sure they'd be proud. How naive I'd been. In my room, I grabbed my largest suitcase and started packing methodically. Clothes, important documents, the small box of jewelry from my grandmother who'd passed away last year. She'd been the only one who'd ever encouraged my medical dreams. You're really doing this? Alex appeared in my doorway. Choosing some stupid dream over your family? I continued packing. No, Alex. I'm choosing my future over fear. There's a difference. You'll fail, he said confidently. You'll come crawling back within a month, begging for forgiveness. I zipped up my suitcase and turned to face him. You know what's funny? Everyone in this family is so focused on preserving the past that they can't see the future. Anderson Hardware is failing because none of you will adapt or change. And now you're making the same mistake with me. His smug expression faltered slightly. Downstairs, Dad was waiting by the front door, my mother still conspicuously absent. Your car stays, he said flatly. It's in the family's name. Fine. I pulled out my phone and ordered an Uber. This is your last chance, Sophia, he said as I walked past him. Stay, work in the business, be part of this family. I paused on the front steps of the house I'd grown up in. I am part of this family, Dad. You're the one choosing money and control over your daughter. You're choosing to leave, he corrected harshly. No, I said, feeling surprisingly calm. I'm choosing to become who I'm meant to be. And one day you'll need me a lot more than I need you. The Uber pulled up to our circular driveway. As I loaded my suitcase into the trunk, I could feel Dad watching from the doorway. Just before I got in, I turned back one last time. By the way, I called out, Anderson Hardware isn't failing because of the economy. It's failing because your online competitors offer better prices and actual customer service. But you'd know that if you ever listened to anyone else's ideas. Then I got in the car, leaving behind everything I'd ever known for everything I wanted to become. The acceptance letter was still in my hand, and as we drove away, I smoothed it out carefully. Where to? The driver asked. I gave him an address, the small apartment I'd secretly rented last week, using my savings from the hospital job. I wasn't as unprepared as they thought. "You okay?" he asked, noting my expression in the rearview mirror. I nodded, watching my childhood home disappear behind us. "I will be." Sometimes being called useless is exactly the motivation you need to become extraordinary. 10 years passed in a blur of surgical rotations, sleepless nights, and countless procedures. I worked my way through medical school, taking extra shifts at the hospital to make ends meet. Every time exhaustion hit, every time I questioned my choices, I remembered my father's words: "You're useless to this family." Those words fueled me through my residency at Johns Hopkins, where I graduated top of my class. They pushed me through my fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery, where I pioneered a new minimally invasive technique that caught the attention of the medical community. Now, at 35, I stood in my office at Manhattan Memorial Hospital, looking at my newly updated nameplate. Dr. Sophia Anderson, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. "Dr. Anderson," my assistant knocked on the door. "The board meeting is about to start." I gathered my files, straightening my white coat. In the decade since I'd left home, I'd had no contact with my family. Sometimes I'd see news about Anderson hardware store closures, declining sales, the inevitable shift to online retail that they'd resisted for too long. The board meeting was routine until the chief of medicine made an unexpected announcement. "As you all know, Manhattan Memorial is merging with 3 smaller hospitals in the tri-state area," he said. "Dr. Anderson will be overseeing the standardization of cardiac care across all facilities." I felt a flutter of pride. My innovative surgical techniques had not only saved lives but had also cut recovery times in half. Now they would become the standard across multiple hospitals. After the meeting, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Dr. Anderson speaking." "Sophia." The voice was hesitant, familiar. My hand tightened on the phone. "What do you want?" "It's your father," she said, her voice breaking. "He had a heart attack. The doctors say he needs emergency bypass surgery, but there are complications. They're recommending transfer to Manhattan Memorial." The irony wasn't lost on me. Manhattan Memorial, my hospital where I was chief of cardiac surgery. "Does he know you're calling me?" I asked coldly. "No," she admitted. "He's unconscious." "Sophia, please. The doctors here say you're the best. They say if anyone can do this surgery, it's you." I closed my eyes, remembering the last time I'd seen my father. "Send his files to my office. I'll review the case." An hour later, I stood in the emergency department as the ambulance arrived. Alex burst through the doors first, looking older but still carrying that same arrogant air. He stopped short when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "My job," I replied calmly, checking my father's vitals as they transferred him to our gurney. "I'm the chief of cardiothoracic surgery." Alex's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally, a dawning realization. Before he could speak, Mom rushed in. "Sophia," she whispered, taking in my white coat, the respectful way the staff deferred to me. "You really did it." "Dr. Anderson," one of my residents interrupted. "The ore is prepped." I nodded, starting to walk alongside my father's gurney. Mom tried to grab my arm. "Wait, we need to discuss this. Your father wouldn't want." "What your father wants," I cut her off, "is to live. And right now I'm his best chance at that. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a surgery to perform." "You can't operate on him," Alex protested. You're too what?" I asked sharply. "Too useless? Too weak. I'm the top cardiac surgeon on the East Coast, Alex. The technique we'll be using today? I developed it. The published papers on your father's condition? I wrote them." The residents around us tried to hide their smiles. My reputation in the hospital was legendary, and watching their chief stand up to her past was better than any medical drama. As we reached the OR doors, I turned to my family one last time. "You can wait in the private consultation room. Someone will update you every hour." "Sophia," Mom called out as I started to scrub in. "We were wrong about you." "So wrong." I looked at her reflection in the OR window. "Yes, you were. Now if you'll excuse me, this useless daughter has a life to save." The OR lights blazed above me as I stepped in, my team ready and waiting. On the table lay my father, the man who'd thrown me out, who'd called me useless, who'd tried to crush my dreams. "Scalpel," I said calmly, holding out my hand. "Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's becoming so right that they have no choice but to put their lives in your hands." 8 hours later, I walked into the consultation room where my family waited. Their heads snapped up, faces anxious and drawn. "The surgery was successful," I said professionally. "We performed a quadruple bypass using my minimally invasive technique." He'll need several weeks of recovery, but the prognosis is good. Mom burst into tears. Alex slumped in his chair, relief evident on his face. He's in recovery now, I continued. You can see him briefly in about an hour. As I turned to leave, Mom called out, Sophia, wait. Your father. When he wakes up. When he wakes up, I interrupted, he'll be in the care of the hospital's best cardiac team. Not because he's my father, but because that's what we do here. That's what this useless daughter built. I walked out, my white coat swishing behind me. At the nurse's station, I picked up my next case file. Life went on and there were more hearts to fix. 3 days later, my father opened his eyes to find me checking his vitals. You. He whispered hoarsely. Hello, Dad, I said, making notes in his chart. I'm Dr. Anderson, your surgeon. And as it turns out, I'm not so useless after all. I walked out of his room, head held high. Sometimes the smallest victories are the sweetest, like saving the life of someone who once threw yours away. In my office, I looked at my wall of medical achievements, the patents, the publications, the awards. Then I smiled, remembering his words from 10 years ago. Being useless had worked out pretty well after all.